I'll say a sentence, and you'll say whether it's an admissions method, meaning it's somewhat true, or an urban legend, meaning it's straight up false. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, our first question is, if you take the LSAT more than once, you average out all the scores.
Urban legend, at least in the modern era. I think there was a time in the 90s or maybe even into the early 2000s in which scores were averaged by LSAC, the good people who bring you the LSAT. But in the last 2 decades, we focus primarily on your highest score as the strongest indicator, although we do look at all of your scores and consider all of them.
Awesome.
So there's no judging.
Awesome. That's really interesting because there's obviously lots of different things floating around. Let's move on to our next question. You need to have legal experience before applying to law school. Admissions method or urban legend?
Definitely an urban legend. Actually, we pride ourselves on having an incoming class that comes from a whole variety of backgrounds, and that makes the classroom much more interesting.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Next question. There's a GPA and LSAT cutoff. Admissions method or urban legend?
Urban legend. There's no cutoffs. There's no floors. There's a whole variety of GPAs and LSAT and GRE scores represented in the one-on class every year.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Now, here's a little controversial question. Admissions officers hate having extra materials to read in your application. Admissions method or urban legend?
Between the two, I would lean towards admissions method, but it depends on what the extra material is. In general, the categories of materials we invite you to submit are all very fair game. We have a rule in our office that we read every piece of paper that you submit to us. And the one thing that is rough going is when people submit very, very long academic papers. We've gotten full senior thesis projects. And given that the rule is that you read the whole thing, it can make it a slog to get through somebody's application. You definitely don't want the person reading your application to feel like, oh my gosh, another 85 pages of this.
Okay, great to hear. I'm very helpful. Now our last little question in this little icebreaker. You should take the LSAT instead of the GRE. Admissions method or urban legend?
Urban legend. You should take what's best for you.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me on your show.